Today I've had the great pleasure of sharing a little peek behind the scenes of how I make my QuickTips videos using Final Cut Pro as part of the ADE Festival of Learning. If you're interested in the process that I go through, from recording footage right the way through to uploading to YouTube, this is the video for you. So, hi, I'm Jacob. Thank you for joining me for this session. This was never going to be a session. I never really planned to have this as a session, but since I'm making a video anyway, and a lot of people ask me how I make the QuickTips, I figured perhaps it might be good to live stream what I'm doing. I'll warn you straight away, this will not take 60 seconds. It won't be like a QuickTips video, it'll actually be quite long. And I guess parts of it are quite tedious as well, it's quite repetitive sometimes. So if you do get bored, feel free to leave. I really won't be offended, I can promise you that. I am recording the session, he says, just checking. Yes, I am recording this. Not that one, go away. I am recording the session, so if you do want to leave and then catch up on the bits again later, by all means, again, feel free. Don't feel like you have to keep yourself muted and silent throughout. It's quite lonely in the office today, so if you do want to chat and say hello, I'd be delighted for you to do that. It'd be lovely to have some company while I'm doing this, so don't be afraid to unmute and ask me questions or have a little chat. So in terms of what I'm actually going to be creating today, I've been trying to think about a suitable QuickTips video. Now, there are lots and lots of things that I'd like to share, but a lot of the time, I'm trying to make videos which are short and snappy. So my goal of a QuickTips video is to make something that lasts for about 60 seconds, sometimes a little bit longer. Yeah, the original inspiration was to make a kind of a short and snappy burst of content for my colleagues at school. Just something to give them an idea that they can then go and play with and explore. So it's not meant to be a whole tutorial, it's not meant to be a whole project in a minute, it's meant to be kind of a match that you can light and spark something else off. That's kind of been the goal all along. So I wanted to do a video today which is going to be quite current and quite up to date, but also a fairly simple one to edit, so I'm not keeping you here for hours and hours. So I'm going to do a short video about the new animation tool in Keynote, where you can draw a path and the object can follow that path. This is something which I think a lot of my colleagues benefit from, and a lot of the children that I work with as well would really enjoy this. Now, my plan was that I was going to mirror my iPad to my Mac via WebEx so you could watch me screen recording, but unfortunately I couldn't screen record and mirror it at the same time. I then tried plugging it in via USB to QuickTime, that didn't work either. So long story short, I have briefly recorded a screen recording this morning of what I'm going to use for my QuickTips video. So hopefully on screen you can see this. There's no audio, it's just literally a 2-minute long clip. So if I play it now for you, you'll get a kind of an idea of the raw material I'm going to work with. Really, really simple. I don't want to make it too complicated, but I am going to make an animation using this rocket flying around the Festival of Learning logo and disappearing off again. We know from the past that's the behavior it follows. It doesn't tend to rotate. So, ooh, how exciting, we'll change that so it rotates. That's basically the message of the video. Really quick, really simple. Towards the end, I'll skip forward a little bit. I add an effect in to make it scale a bit, so it looks like it's flying off into the distance. Then I play it without adding the effect, which wasn't very clever. But then I play it again, and this time the effect applies as it should do, and then we should get the rocket disappearing off and flying properly. So I've made a mistake in that screen recording, but we'll come along later and change that in Final Cut Pro. This is 2.5 minutes long. This is far too long for what the QuickTips is actually going to be. So what we're going to do is we're going to hopefully make this a little bit shorter and a bit snappier in Final Cut Pro. So let's jump straight into Final Cut Pro, and I will start guiding you through this. Again, if you've got questions, feel free to interrupt and shout at me. I've got the video on, you can see what I'm doing as well. Can you see me? Yes, I think you can. Hi, there you go. That might not be an improvement, I'm not really sure. We'll go into Final Cut Pro, and I'll talk you through this. Now, if you haven't used Final Cut Pro before, then you will be exactly like I was a year ago. I had never touched it before. In fact, the thought of it terrified me, so I actively avoided it. But I've been giving it a go, and I actually starting to quite like it now. It's a hugely powerful tool, and when you get the hang of it, you can start making some really impressive things quite easily. Now, I should mention that if you haven't got Final Cut Pro, Final Cut Pro is currently being given away on a 90-day free trial. So you can find that on the Apple website, and you get 3 months of Final Cut Pro completely free. So if you go away from this and you think, I could do that, by all means, get Final Cut Pro and give it a try, and share what you've done with me on Twitter, because I would love to see if this has given you any ideas and anything like that. So in Final Cut Pro, I have projects for all my recent videos. And I've got one that's just a blank template. It's formatted to the right resolution, and I can then use this, hopefully, to make my new video. So I'm just going to control-click on there, and I'm going to duplicate that project. I'm going to make sure that I rename it very quickly. So this one's going to be Keynote Line Draw, and I'm going to double-click on it to open. You may not notice that at the moment, on my timeline down here, I'm on the blank template, not the new project. So I can double-click on there first, and that will open it as a new project for me. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out of my timeline, and the first thing is to get my recorded screen recording to replace this clip here. So my template is really simple. It's a background color with an iPad frame, a transparent PNG frame, and then the screen recording sits behind the frame in the layer stack, which means that you get the nice rounded edges, and it kind of all fits in really quite nicely. So let me go to
Can you hear me?
Hello, I can hear you.
Hi, Jacob, it's Rachel.
Hi, Rachel, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Can I just ask you a quick question?
Yeah, please do.
You know, you say your template's in the right resolution. What is the right resolution?
Okay, so for a very, very long time, in fact, up until 4 weeks ago, I was doing it as 1080p HD, 24 frames per second in HD. But when I had my new iPad, I figured I could probably go to 4K now. So at the moment, I'm working in up here at the top a 4K resolution. It doesn't really make a huge difference, but I figured perhaps as I'm going, adding them to YouTube and uploading them and sharing them, in years to come, as the screens get better on our computers, 4K will look nicer. So I'm kind of future-proofing it a little bit by doing that. However, 1080p is more than enough. I'm working on a 5K iMac today, and the old videos looked quite pixelated when I viewed them full screen. The 4K ones don't. Having said that, my iMac resolution today is absolutely huge because WebEx wouldn't stream it when it was on 5K.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay, so I've dropped in that video clip now, and you'll probably notice that it's completely the wrong size for my template. So if I go onto my existing one that I know is the correct size, on my control panel here, I can change the X and Y coordinates of that clip and the scale. And they're the two things that I need for that video. So the scale on that one is 85%. If I go back to here, I could change it manually there. Or you can copy and paste the exact properties from one to the other. So I'm going to click on the one that I know is good, and I'm going to do Command and C. I'm going to click on the new one, and I'm going to press Command Shift and V. And what that will do is it will bring up the Paste Attributes box. Here you can see what properties it will carry across, and when I press Paste, that video is now the right size for my frame. So I can go ahead now and drag that one straight up to there, and I can delete the old one because I'm now happy that that video is good. It's way too long, and of course I made that mistake later on, so I will go and change that in a minute or two. But the next thing I need to do is to do my Memoji voiceover. So again, I had great visions of plugging in my phone and mirroring it, and then you watching it and watching me and all of that clever stuff, but it hasn't worked. So instead, you're going to have to watch the back of my iPhone as I talk to it. Apologies in advance for that. But what I'm doing is I'm using the Messages app on my phone, and I'm basically sending myself a message. I'm not going to send anyone else because no one else is going to really care. But I'm having a conversation with myself, and I'm going to record my Memoji voiceover. To do this is really, really simple, and you can only record in 30-second chunks, which is incredibly annoying, but it kind of helps me keep things brief and quick. I was hoping that iOS 14 would change that limit to make it longer, but it hasn't, so that's a bit of a shame. But this will hopefully still work. I've got my little clip-on microphone here, which is a Rode one. If you want to know what that is, ask Jacob EH, he'll tell you all about this, but it's really, really handy. And that just means the audio quality is slightly better. And if you'll excuse me for a moment, I'm going to record onto my Memoji. let me show you a really quick tip that lets you add a whole new dimension to your animation in Keynote. Okay, so that's a really quick introduction clip that normally plays at the very start of the video. And the next thing to do is to talk through the actual video content itself. Now, even though it's only a minute or two, it can be quite tricky to remember exactly what you've done. So as I talk into my iPhone, I may make a few mistakes, but I can change that later, and Final Cut makes it quite easy. So let me give this a quick go. In Keynote, that was a terrible start, I'm going to delete that and start again. In Keynote, you can use the line draw animation. No, that's not what it's called. What is it called in Keynote? Where is it going? It is the create path animation. Okay. In Keynote, you can use the create path animation to add movement to any object on your presentation. I've got this rocket here, and I'm going to add an animation and create a path as an action. That path will then do a loop-the-loop around my logo in the middle, and it will fly off into space. Now, when I press play, you might notice that that rocket remains vertical, which doesn't look very natural. Okay, that's my first clip. I'm just going to send that to myself in messages, and then start a new one. Come on, phone. Okay. Tap onto the name of the animation again, and you'll get a few more options. On here, you can choose align to path and turn that on. You can use the rotation slider if you'd like to make it slightly more accurate. And then when you press preview, your rocket will actually move along the line of the path, exactly like you kind of think it should do. I'm also going to change my animation setting to remove the ease in and ease out and turn that to none. This will give it a consistent movement throughout the animation. I'm just going to check on my timeline now in Final Cut to see how far I've got in my commentary. So I've turned on align to path, I've turned off animation. Okay. The last thing is the scale animation. I'm very aware that I've now recorded two 30-second clips, and that means already I'm at the limit of what my video should be. So anything more than that is now kind of an extra, and I'm going to try and clock that down later to keep it short and to the point.
Yeah.
Oh, I just sent a blank one. That's good. Finally, I'm going to add a second animation called a scale effect to make the rocket get smaller as it goes along. I'm going to set this to the same length as the rocket moving, but I'm going to delay it slightly so it takes a moment for it to actually start shrinking. I'm then going to tap on the animation and make sure it starts with build 1. That means that both animations will happen simultaneously, and the rocket will go blasting off into space. Okay. So I messed up the end of that one, but again, that's fine in Final Cut Pro. So let me show you what I've just made. I know you can't see that right now, which is not ideal for a live demo, is it? But I guess it works. I'm going to save in messages by tapping and holding the Memoji, and just press save. Tap and hold, 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 press save. I can only imagine this bit is absolutely riveting if you're watching at home. Just me talking to my phone or you. Okay, I'm going to add those to my back, and you should see them start to come through. Okay, from now on in, it's all on the iMac. So in my downloads folder, I've now got these 4 new Memoji. If I play this, you should hear it. Finally, I'm going to add a second animation with a scale effect, make the rocket get smaller as it goes along. Perfect. Now you might notice when I played that, the background went from black to white. That's because that emoji actually saves with what's called an alpha layer, which is transparent as the background. This wasn't always the case. In fact, this only came out in iOS 13.1, and I'm led to believe that came out because I complained a lot to someone on the Final Cut Pro team. So, Antonio, I'm very grateful if that was because of you. Basically, what that means now is that I haven't got to remove that background using a filter in Final Cut Pro. It's naturally transparent. But to make it work really effectively, I need to go into the second Apple app called Compressor. Now, Compressor comes in a bundle with Final Cut Pro, or you can get it standalone. And I never really saw a point to it to begin with. but it's incredibly powerful. And when you come to actually exporting your project, you can make some really, really effective edits and different resolutions really quickly by dragging on multiple different ones of these. Now, I want to convert all 4 of my .mov files into Apple ProRes files. So I'm dragging them into Compressor. And on the side here, I want Apple ProRes 4444 with alpha. I don't know what the difference between 4444 and the other ones are, but that's what I've been told to use, and that's what I do. I drag that on like this, and then we press Start Batch. And what that will do is that will very quickly convert those 4 files into a different format that Final Cut Pro can render slightly quicker, which makes it easier to work with. It takes usually about half a minute, so I'll have a quick drink. So there's a lot of different things that I'm doing here which overly complicate the process. I'm fully aware of that. There are far quicker ways of doing this. But the reason I'm doing it this way is because I want the videos to be really short and to the point. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist and I want them to be the best that I can make them. So you could do a screen recording with voiceover and make a mistake and, that's fine. So I could have kept what I had earlier. But I don't want to do that. I want it to be the best that I can make it. And I've got into a bit of routine now, so it's fairly quick, this process. My 4 clips are here. I'm going to drag those ones onto my timeline, and they will fall into place like that. Doesn't matter where I put them, as long as they're in there somewhere. Now, you'll notice that the first one is a lot shorter. That's my introductory clip. So I always record a 5-second or so introduction, just to let people know what the video is going to be about. So if I listen to that one, okay, you can probably tell that's very, very quiet, and it doesn't sound as clear as my one over here. Normally here you can use the pencil tools and the highlighter to colour in your image. Okay, so it doesn't sound anywhere near as good as that one. So what I'm going to do is click onto my clip, and over on the audio toolbox up here where the speaker is, I'm going to go to Audio Enhancements, Equalization, and I'm going to choose Voice Enhance. What that will do, hopefully, is pick out the voice and make it a bit clearer. You might have noticed that the waveform jumped up a little bit there. It's also made it slightly louder. Okay, a little bit louder, but still not perfect. So the next thing to do is audio analysis. At the moment, it's not been analysed at all, but if I press the little magic wand, that will change. I can then turn on the loudness to a point where it isn't going to be hopefully too loud, and if I go down, I can turn on noise removal as well. That should now leave me with a fairly clear, hopefully, return notifications. That should leave a fairly clear audio recording. Let me show you a really quick tip that lets you add a whole new dimension to your animation in Keynote. In Keynote, you can use the I'm hoping from where you are, you can hear the difference between the edited sound and the non-edited sound. So I'm happy with that now. That's sounding quite good. So I'm going to drag that to the beginning of my project up here. I'm then just going to go and, oh, look at that. It's in the wrong position. Luckily, the existing clip is in the right position and it has that nice little animation at the beginning. If I Command C to copy and click on my new clip and do Command Shift V to paste the attributes, I don't want audio, but I do want all of these. That will now put it in the right place and it will animate that one for me. So I can delete my old clip and now I have this. Let me show you a really quick tip that lets you add a whole new dimension to your animation in Keynote. Cool, that's a fairly good start. I'm happy with that. You may notice that the text is wrong. I'll come and fix that later. But there are 2 things wrong with that clip. And at this point, we're getting really into the weeds now of, do we need to be, putting this much effort into a 60-second clip? But I do want to. So I'm going to do 2 things to my audio. If you look at the waveform here, I'm hoping it's high enough resolution you can see. At the beginning, there's a little lump, and at the end, there's one as well. It tends to pick up breathing on the microphone, and before I start talking, I tend to naturally take a breath in. So if you listen to that a little bit, you can just hear a slight gasp of air. I'm going to press Option, and I'm going to click. I'm going to press Control, Command. Is it Command? Is it Option? It's Option. There you go. I'm going to press Option. I was right the first time. And I'm going to click on that timeline to make some little markers like this. 1 marker, 2 markers. And I can drag that one down, and that will now mute that initial bit of sound. Again, this is extremely, extremely pernickety, but I want to do it to make it look as right as I can. I'm going to do the same over here. So I'm going to Option click and Option click, and then I can move the volume down on the timeline there. So you probably won't hear the difference over WebEx, but I can on my end. Let me show you a really quick tip. There's no longer a gasp at the beginning. I also want to trim off those last couple of moments. So I'm just going to grab that, I'm going to pull it in just to make it a bit snappier, as it should be. When you're working with 60 seconds, literally every second you can save will help. So hopefully that will make a difference. Let me show you a really quick tip that lets you add a whole new dimension to your animation in Keynote. Okay, I'm already bored of hearing that, so let's move on. I've now got the actual voices that I use to describe the tip. So my Memoji head is there, and it's talking through the process. I want to get them in the right position first of all. So I'm going to copy the position of this clip, which I know is in the right place. And I'm going to drag over all of them, Command-Shift-V. I'm not going to copy the audio, because audio differs from clip to clip based on how close you are to the microphone and all of those things. But we'll do the audio in a second. I'm going to decline that. I'm not quite sure what's happening there. So let's press Paste, and these should now be in the right position. You can see on the screen in the middle, my head is now in the right place. I'm going to slide them along, and I'm going to delete the old one, because that was just there as a placeholder, and put the new ones there instead. Now, in Final Cut Pro, one of the really nice things that it does, it has a magnetic timeline, which means it will automatically snap in the right place. You might notice that that clip is slightly higher, and that's because it's not quite aligned right. I move it sideways, a nudge, it'll sit down there nicely. So I've now got my 3 clips in the right place. I'm just going to do a quick voice enhance on the audio, and then I'm going to analyze each one and turn the volume and the noise removal up. I'm doing this individually because it doesn't seem to apply the same settings to each clip. This one is going to have a 31% increase in loudness. The next one will likely be different. But what it's doing is it's in 32%. It's going to standardize the level of noise and the volume across the whole project, I think. Again, this is kind of guessing what I know kind of works. And we're going to put the loudness on 17% for that last one. So now hopefully these are going to be consistently loud, and they should sound quite clear like this. And create a path and an action. That path will then do a loop-the-loop around my logo in the middle. Okay, so that's quite a clear sound, and I'm happy with that now. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to think about the length of my video. You'll notice that the screen recording is considerably longer than the actual Memoji heads. The Memoji heads, that's as long as I want it to be. In fact, I messed up on a section here, so it's going to be a bit shorter in a minute as well. But my teal background doesn't quite go long enough. So I'm going to extend that ever so slightly. We'll put it out a bit longer than it needs to be, just like that for the moment. Let's get rid of that grey box at the end. Now, this end sequence here, if I double click into there, that's basically another Memoji, a background, and the music. And I've added subtitles. I might come to that later if there's time. But that's basically just, if you like this, please subscribe, all that nonsense. Thanks for watching that video. Yeah, cool. And that just falls at the end of my project. So all of my editing is going to end before that point. So in a minute, we might adjust that again. Okay, so let's get into this actual editing now. You may have thought we'd already started the editing. No. My first job is to make the audio and the Memoji commentary fit. I'm not worried at all about the screen recording at the moment. I'm more concerned about big gaps and things that don't quite look right with the Memoji. So let's very quickly, I'll do it as quick as I can, I promise, have a look at what we've got. In Keynote, you can use the Create. Okay, there's a big pause there. I'm going to click on it, press Command B for Blade, and delete that first bit. I know at the end here there's a lot of silence, so I'm going to click on there, press Command B, delete it. I'm going to do the same up there. Command B, delete it. And what that will mean now is when I play these, it will almost be continuous.
Rocket remains vertical, which doesn't look very natural. Tap onto the name of the animation again, and you'll get...
Okay, so there's now no gap between them, which is much nicer. And again, I'm going to slide them up to the beginning of my timeline. There is a pause here, and I wonder if that's where I went wrong earlier. Let's have a listen to this whole section and just see.
You can use a rotation slider if you'd like to make it slightly more accurate. And then, when you press preview, your rocket will actually move along the line of the path, exactly like you kind of think it should do. I'm also going to change my animation setting to remove the ease in and ease out, and turn that to none. This will give it a consistent movement throughout the animation.
Okay, that wasn't a mistake, so we'll keep that bit in. That must mean the mistake is still to come. What a treat. We'll delete that, pop that into there. So I'm just using Command B, which is a shortcut for the blade tool. You can go up here and choose the blade manually, but I find when I do that, I just end up slicing through all sorts of things, and it's not great. So I like doing it more precisely than that personally. I'm going to listen to this whole last section a minute and see what our mistake is.
Finally, I'm going to add a second animation called a scale effect to make the rocket get smaller as it goes along. I'm going to set this to the same length as the rocket moving, but I'm going to delay it slightly so it takes a moment for it to actually start shrinking.
Sounds okay.
I'm then going to tap on the animation and make sure it starts with build 1. That means that both simultaneous... That means that both...
Okay. So at some point there, I've missed a word or slipped up, but we can use the waveforms here to help us with that editing.
Build 1. That means that both...
So I start that means...
That means that...
And I pick up again with that means. So when you're recording, if you know that you've made a mistake like that, repeat your last phrase, because then when you come to edit, it's really easy just to cut that out and do something a bit more like this. Put that in.
I'm then going to tap on the animation and make sure it starts with build 1. That means that both animations will happen simultaneously, and the rocket will go blasting off into space.
Okay, that is now the end of my QuickTips video in terms of the commentary from the Memoji. So whatever length that is, 1 minute 24, that is the end. So I know that my iPad frame needs to fill that space, and I also know that my background needs to get to there and stop. So now I've got the fundamentals of the QuickTip. I've figured out the length, I've got the frame, I've got the background, got the end sequence. All I need to do is actually mirror the screen recording to what I've been talking about. Now, this is where it gets quite fun for me, because I quite like stitching things together. But essentially what we're going to do is we're now going to edit that screen recording, and we're going to change a few things. This is one of the biggest secrets of what I do with my QuickTips. When you watch the video, that's not actually a direct screen recording. I've misspelled keynote there, and that's going to annoy me, so I'm going to fix that before. There you go. It's not a direct screen recording of what I've actually made. So, this is how I do it. I start off at the beginning, and as I'm talking, I'm listening to the Memoji head, but I'm also watching the screen recording to see when those actions happen. I try and say something and have it happen on the iPad screen at the same time, or as close to it as I can. So, when I'm doing my actual screen recording, I tend to leave a lot of empty space. For example, when I play this, if I turn off the volume there a second, you'll notice I don't tap anything straight away, and when I do tap something, there's a delay before I press the next button. There's no rush, but what that means is that I can then go in and I can hopefully cut bits out or stretch bits to make it mirror what I'm saying to make it fit better. So let's have a quick go and you'll see what I mean, so I'm not explaining that particularly well.
In Keynote, you can use the Create Path animation to add movement to any object on your presentation. I've got this rocket here, and I'm going to add an animation.
Okay, so can you see there, the actual screen recording has started before I said what I'm doing, which is completely wrong. You don't want that. You don't want to be looking at the screen recording and thinking, hang on, what's happening here?
I've got this rocket here, and I'm going to add an animation.
So I'm going to slide that whole clip sideways.
Here, and I'm going to add an animation.
Okay, so now when I say add animation, I tap the animate button.
And I'm going to add an animation and create a path.
Cool. But hang on, now I've got I've got a gap at the beginning, that's no good. I'm going to try and fake a surprise face. Oh no, that's awful. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to slice with the blade tool this one clip, because nothing happens in that clip. Nothing happens apart from that hand, which I'll show you later. Nothing happens in that clip. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go onto my speed settings and I'm going to slow it down to 50%. Now, you may notice I've got an orange bar there. I can grab that handle and make it shorter or longer. I don't know why, but the speed settings do not use the magnetic timeline to snap onto other things, because any other clip, if you move it close enough, it would snap onto there, but this doesn't. So I make it a little bit longer, the blade tool will snap on, slice it, cut it, done. So now I've edited my recording
In Keynote,
to make it fit.
Create path animation to add movement to any object on your presentation. I've got this locket here, and I'm going to add an animation
Cool.
and create a path as an action. That path will then do a loop-the-loop around my logo in the middle.
Okay, so what I've now done is I've said about creating a path, and I've pressed it on the screen, but you can't actually see me pressing that button. So what I'm going to do later is I'm going to use my little finger pointer tool that I have, and I'll put that on there. But I want to get the right length first, okay? I will go as quick as I can, but I appreciate that this is quite tedious, I imagine, for some of you, so I don't mind if you do want to leave and come back, or never come back. I won't come and find you, don't worry, it'll be fine. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hopefully, very quickly now, do some more stretching and trimming of my screen recording to make it fit.
Loop around my logo in the middle, and it will fly on into space. Now, when I press play, you might notice that locket remains vertical.
Okay, I'm talking about pressing play, but I'm nowhere near ready to press play on my animation. So what I'm going to do now is the opposite cheat. I'm going to speed it up a little bit. So from here to here, nothing happens. So I'm going to delete that whole chunk because there's no movement on the screen at all. So when I do this, you won't notice anything change.
My logo in the middle, and it will fly off into space.
That's better. I'm going to have a quick look in case there's anywhere else that I can do a similar thing. So I can't cut it here, there's too much movement. I could take a chunk out of that. So if I cut it there, and then cut it perhaps about there, that whole chunk isn't adding anything to the video. That's me pausing as I recorded so that I could do this exact same thing. Sometimes my Memoji talks for too long, in which case I want that gap there. But a lot of the time, I don't really need it. So we'll try it again.
That path will then do a loop-the-loop around my logo in the middle, and it will fly off into space.
Oh, it should
Now, when I
twice.
press play, you might notice that locket remains vertical, which doesn't look very natural. Tap the logo in the middle, and it will fly off into space. Now, when I press play, you might notice that locket remains vertical, which doesn't look very natural. Tap onto it.
Perfect. So now what I'm talking about mirrors exactly what you're watching on the screen. Let's have a quick play forwards. Luckily, the video's only a minute long. If it was a longer video, I probably wouldn't bother to do any of this, but the short ones, it's okay.
The name of the animation again, and you'll get a few more options. On here, you can choose
Right.
a line to.
So I've talked there about tapping on the name of the animation, and I haven't done that. So what we'll do again is we will trim a nice big chunk out of that. We'll probably get rid of doing it to about there. So that in itself is a 4-second clip. Again, when you're making a 60-second video, a 4-second clip is quite a lot. So let's get rid of that.
Which doesn't look very natural. Tap onto the name of the animation again, and you'll get a few more options.
Again, bit too much of a delay there. We're getting really, really, really fussy now, but that's good.
Tap onto the name of the animation again, and you'll get a few more options.
Yes.
On here, you can choose a line to.
Okay. I don't know how tiny it is on your screen. It's quite tiny. But I then pressed the button on the recording before I told you about the button. So I'm now going to slow it down a little bit.
Options.
We'll go to there. We'll trim it. And we'll trim that. And we're going to make that one slower by about 50%. Stretch it out a bit more. And then we'll line it up at the end. Oh, down there. There we go.
A few more options. On here, you can choose a line to path. And
Perfect.
turn that on. You can use a rotation slider if you'd like to make it.
Okay, so I can get rid of a bit now.
Turn that on. You can use a rotation slider if you'd like to make it slightly.
Thanks for that comment, James. It does make it feel quite nice when you watch it back, but it's something that I kind of wish I hadn't started when I did it like a year ago. Because now I've set a benchmark, but I kind of feel like I have to try and do this every time.
You can use a rotation slider if you'd like.
Okay, so that mirrors nicely.
And then when you press preview, your rocket will actually move along the line of the path. Exactly like you kind of think it should do. I'm also going to change my animation setting to remove the ease in and ease out and turn that to none. This will give it a consistent movement.
Cool, so that fits quite nicely. I can trim a couple of seconds here, again, just to be really fussy, and we'll pop that along there. Watch it one more time. I might open my lukewarm can of Coke as well.
You can use a rotation slider if you'd like to make it slightly more accurate. And then, when you press preview, your rocket will actually move along the line of the path, exactly like you kind of think it should do. I'm also going to change my animation setting to remove the ease in and ease out and turn that to none. This will give it a consistent movement throughout the animation. Finally, I'm going to add a second animation.
Right, so at this point, I've played that movement again on the screen recording, but I haven't got time to show the viewer that movement. What I do instead is I add in a scale effect. So I'm now going to trim that entire movement to get rid of it. So that 2.5 minute screen recording is now going to get a little bit shorter, because now I can trim it to here. But if I delete that, you might notice that the little settings panel suddenly pops up, which we don't want.
The movement throughout the animation.
Okay, so I've not quite trimmed that properly. The settings panel disappears, but I should have trimmed it before it faded. So we'll delete that as well and put that back along.
Ease out and turn that to none. This will give it a consistent movement throughout the animation.
Cool.
Finally, I'm going to add a second animation,
add a scale
effect, to make the rocket get smaller as it goes along. I'm going to set this to the same length as the rocket moving,
okay,
but I'm going to delay it slightly so it takes a moment for it to actually start shrinking. I'm then going to tap on the animation and make sure it starts with build 1. That means that both animations will happen simultaneously and my rocket will go blasting off into space. Hey, thanks for watching that video.
Cool. So I think at that point, I'm not going to be too fussy about the fact that my commentary doesn't quite mirror what I'm doing, because I'm going back to the point of this video as being a kind of a spark to ignite something in the viewer, a bit of inspiration. I don't need to talk about the scale effect because that's not what the video is about. That's kind of a little bonus on top. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to change that, but the problem I've got is that my talking finishes and we don't get to watch the final animation, which is a shame. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed up a little bit of what I'm doing here. So let me go to that point just before it disappears. And I'm going to cut it. And I'm going to go back here a bit as well. Okay. This whole chunk, which lasts 18 seconds, is me adjusting the settings on the scale effect. It's not the key part of the video, so I don't need to spend that long showing that particular aspect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the speed and make it twice as quick. We're going to watch it back, and if it's too much, I'll slow it down a little bit. But quite often you can get away with this, especially if you've got a scene where you're typing, because people don't necessarily know how quickly you can type or how quickly I can move sliders on a navigation sheet like that one.
I'm going to set this to the same length as the rocket moving, but I'm going to delay it slightly so it takes a moment for it to actually start shrinking. I'm then going to tap on the animation and make sure...
Okay, I think it'd be pretty hard to spot that you sped that up. So I'm very, very happy to keep that. And what that then means can happen is hopefully you'll get a chance to watch the animation before the end of the video. Again, this whole bit here doesn't really do much for me. So I'm going to take a little bit of an artistic license with this, which probably isn't ideal, but hey. And I'm going to get rid of that whole chunk. We'll see how it looks. This might be a little bit jarring, but I think the benefit of having the animation in there, I think that will pay it off. Yes, Logan, hopefully this is recording. Fingers crossed. And I will share it later on. I'm then going to tap on the animation and make sure it starts with build 1. That means that both animations... Okay, I don't think, unless you were an absolute keynote wizard, I don't think you'd perhaps notice that I've cheated a bit there. I don't think.
I'm then going to tap on the animation and make sure it starts with build
Yeah.
one.
But I want to get rid of that pause. In fact, no, I don't, because that is the wrong. That's the mistake that I made earlier. I want to actually cut right ahead. So when I played this earlier, I forgot that I hadn't put the two effects simultaneously. I said that I had, but I didn't. So I need to quickly change that and pretend like nothing's happened. Hang on. Great. This adds a complexity that I was not anticipating. Okay.
Start shrinking.
So where I've done after build one there, that was long. So that needs to go. All of that needs to go. That needs to go back.
I'm going to actually start shrinking.
With build one.
I'm then going to tap on the animation and make sure it starts with build one. That
Yep.
means that
Okay, again, all of that can now be quicker. No, go away. It needs to go to about that point. That can go to be about 2 times as quick like it was before. Then we can slide on. Now we're back in business.
so it takes a moment for it to actually start shrinking. I'm then going to tap on the animation and make sure it starts with build one. That means that both.
And again, we'll do the little sneaky bit there where we kind of crop out some of the UI animation in Keynote. Okay.
I'm then going to tap on the animation and make sure it starts with build one. That means that.
Apple Pencil. There you go. We'll get rid of that toolbar because that's doing nothing for me.
Okay.
Animation and make sure it
He's
starts
showing how he makes 1-minute quick videos in Final Cut.
and make sure it starts with build one. That means that both animations will happen simultaneously.
Yeah, that's the topic of
Okay.
this thing.
And that literally flies off the screen at the exact right moment, and I am absolutely delighted. That
So the
got-
deal here is
So what I'm going
he's
to do
making
now,
tips for his staff. They look
I'm going to
very
add in
good.
the finger pointer,
They
which
look
is the
very
last thing
professional.
really.
So what he's
I'm gonna
doing,
get to my
sure,
actual
that
quick
makes
video.
sense. Somebody says, "Oh, this would be great for kids to do,"
As I swipe through,
you know, and somebody said, "Yeah, I guess they could do it in iMovie,"
See
and
if
it'd be
that's
similar
gonna
for
work.
them. And I said, "Or clips." You know, and then somebody
I
kind of
know.
jumped back in and said, "Yeah, but the process to getting people down to being concise." Oh, yeah, agreed. But that you don't have to use Final Cut to insist that you
Okay.
make your
So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to use my little
what?
pointing hand here.
I'm using it a whole
I'm
lot
going
more
to
now.
copy that, and I'm going to paste it at points where
Yeah,
I've
almost
tapped
everything
something on
I
the
do
screen
is
so the
Final
viewer
Cut.
can see it. Now I could use the iPad and the cursor because that will have
Get
a
a whole
mark
lot
on the screen.
And I,
But I
well,
haven't
mean,
done that up until
finally
now.
figured out how to
I
do
quite
this
like
stuff.
the idea of just showing.
I need to be able to do
side
this, and I
tapping,
can't do it in
because I
iMovie.
think that perhaps.
So I got the Final
adds
Cut.
something
I've looked
to
up
it.
how to do that. I've learned that
Oh, I can't mute Ken. Can I mute Ken? I don't know if he knows it.
between Apple and ADEs, it's
I do
free.
that.
Yeah.
Well, scrolls are out too, so I know the hockey's around.
Because I'm sharing my screen. Oh, participants, here we go. Okay, hang on. Oh, I think he might have possibly done it. Okay, there we go. Cool. Sorry, Ken. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just copy and paste that pointer very quickly. So I'm going to scrub through my timeline, and I'm going to see where I tap. So tap on the character there. So I'm going to paste my little pointing hand. There's a little box here that lets you change it by dragging and dropping, and that's quite a quick way of then moving the pointer.
Click here. I'm going to add an animation.
So I'm going to choose the animate button. I pause the timeline when I see it changing on the screen, but then I realize that that's the end of my tapping action. I tap before it highlights. So I then jump backwards a bit, about the length of that clip, so that hopefully it disappears at the right time. And then we're just going to slide that into place like that.
I'm going to add an animation and
Cool.
create a path and action.
Okay, so we press add action. So I'm going to very quickly do this. This is quite a nice quick bit that I do at the end of the video. And this serves as a good way of me actually like proofing what I've done and checking through it to make sure there's no obvious mistakes.
And action. That path will
Okay, and we've got a create path one that comes in there. onto there.
That path will then do a loop-the-loop around my logo in the middle.
Don't need to put a pointer on that because it's quite self-explanatory.
So when I press play, you might notice that look.
Okay, I pressed play, so I should probably. Oh, I didn't. It did it automatically, didn't it? We'll leave that. That'll be fine.
Tap onto the name of the animation again.
Okay, tap on the animation name.
Animation again, and you'll get a few more options. On here, you can choose align to.
I like that one.
You can choose align to path and turn that on. You can use a rotation slider if you'd like to make it slightly more accurate.
I'll put a little finger there. We don't need to, but I guess it will make it clear to anyone watching where the rotation slider is.
To make it slightly more accurate. You can use a rotation slider if you'd like to make it slightly more accurate. And then when you press preview, your rocket will actually move along the line of the path, exactly like you kind of think it should do.
It's all looking okay.
I'm also going to change my animation setting to remove the ease in and ease.
So. At this point, I realised I didn't use the term acceleration, the acceleration button, but I'm thinking about putting a finger to it. It's pretty obvious what I meant to say. I'm not sure where animation settings came from in my head, but never mind.
To remove the ease in and ease out.
And I'll put a little arrow pointing to none. Cool. Okay.
And ease out. And turn that to none. This will give it a consistent movement throughout the animation. Finally, I'm going to add a second animation.
So, quickly put the scale on there.
The animation. Finally, I'm going to add a second animation called a scale effect. Scale effect to make the rocket get smaller as it goes along.
Now, I'm about to go into my 2x speed mode, and I'm not going to put the little hands on that bit. Because I think at that point, the settings that I'm changing, you don't have to change them to make this table work, and more just me perfecting it for the video I've made. So I'm going to leave those ones not marked, and that means that we are now at the point where the actual video itself for the tip is done. The last thing to change, and I promise we're nearly there, the actual Final Cut Pro side of all of this, the last thing to change is my introduction. Oh, hello, a bit shocked there. So every video has an introduction which is the same for my QuickTips. I like to have a bit of a theme. I'm a creature of habit, and I quite like having something that kind of is consistent across my videos. So if I play this, you get a bit of jazzy music from GarageBand, you get a title and a subtitle, and the app icon. Now that's obviously the long app icon and the long app name. So let's just double click on there and we'll change that to be Keynote. And we will call this Create. That is too long. Create natural animations. What is on with my typing today? What is going on? On a line path, can that fit? Create animations along a line path. There we go. That looks okay. And then we'll get the keynote icon. I've used this one before, otherwise I'd make a PNG and I'll drag that on the timeline. And just like earlier when I had my copy and pasting properties, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to copy and paste from the camera icon. So at the beginning of the video, the camera has a kind of a slide-in effect. And if I Command C and then Command Shift V, that will paste that exact same animation and the position all at the same time. So now, as easy as that, the introduction is done.
Let me show you a
But there is too much of a gap there, so let's slide that along and we'll make the introduction a little bit shorter so that the video can run a moment or two quicker.
Let me show you a
Perfect. So we're just going to grab everything that I've made, absolutely everything, and we're going to nudge it up to the line. That may shave off about half a second, I don't know. But either way, 1 whole second. There you go, an entire second gone. Perfect. Okay. Whew. That's a QuickTips video made in Final Cut Pro. That's that portion of this thing that I'm doing, whatever this thing is meant to be, I'm not quite sure. That's that portion of this done. If you have had enough and want to leave, I'm absolutely fine with that. Or if you do want to stick around, I will show you very quickly how I export that, how I add it up to YouTube, how I upload it to YouTube, and I'm going to show you very quickly the thumbnail process in Photoshop as well. So yeah, this is going to be the second part now. If you want to stick around, it'd be lovely to have you here. If not, I completely understand if you do want to leave. But I've now made a QuickTips video. The total runtime before the end sequence is 1 minute 23 seconds. So I think that is pretty good, given my aim is to do it in 1 minute. The last 15 seconds or so, I made a little goodbye message at the end. Now, I didn't used to have this, but what it does mean is it gives me space to put thumbnail cards around the video on YouTube. So if someone's watched this, they can then find other videos that might be helpful. And I'll show you how that works in a second. But for now, I want to go File, and I want to send it to Compressor. And sending it to Compressor will then let me choose how I want this video to be exported. So if I minimize Final Cut, this is my video in Compressor, and I'm going to use the up to 4K published to YouTube preset. There are hundreds of different presets in here that all do different things. And the amazing thing is you can drag on multiple presets at the same time and it will export them all for you. So you might have a video that you want to share on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and you can export it in 3 different ways simultaneously so that you can do that. But for me, I'm just going to do that into 4K for YouTube, and we'll start the batch. Now that shouldn't take too long to upload. So while it's doing that, what I'm going to do is hop over to YouTube, which I will open up for you now. You can see that here, you can see that. And we'll go on to my YouTube account. Okay, so from here, again, you may be familiar with YouTube, you may not be, but I'll just talk you through my process because then you might find something useful or not, I don't know. I'm going to press Upload Video in the top corner and then choose Upload Video. At this stage, normally Compressor has finished. I think perhaps because I'm doing a WebEx stream at the same time, it's a little bit slower than normal. Tell you what, has anyone got any questions while we're waiting for this to render? Feel free to take yourself off mute and ask questions. If not, you get to enjoy me drinking a Coke for the next 30 seconds or so. Coke it is. Oh, I'm seeing in the chat about Martin Coops' shortcut for app icons. Yes, Rachel, I use that on my iPad and then send them from my iPad to my Mac. I don't believe Shortcuts works on the Mac at the moment, but I'm pretty sure that's going to change when Big Sur comes out in a couple of months' time, at which point it'll be much quicker to then do it that way and get the thumbnails for the app icons that way. It's a really great shortcut. Okay, Ken has asked about copying and pasting attributes. Yes, so when I copy and paste the attributes, Ken, first of all, you click on the clip that you want to take things from. So if I like that clip, if I like the position or the speed or anything, I can click on it and press Command C. When I then want to paste it, I do Command Shift and V, and you get this option screen coming up now. It tells you where the attributes are coming from and where they're going, and you can choose which ones you want or which ones you don't. When I'm doing anything with audio, I will tend to turn off the audio attributes because I don't think it always adjusts for each individual clip. But when I'm doing stuff for video or color grading or any of those things, I'll paste all of those things at the same time. So it'll only offer you the ones that you customized, but they're the ones that I would paste if I needed them to. And again, it's just a time-saving thing. It took me about 4 months to realize you could do that. So hopefully I'll save someone a little bit of time.
Jacob, you know, hello, it's Rachel, by the way.
Hi, Rachel.
You know your teal background and your little movie, you know, your little film thing that's on the side. Did you make that
in Final Cut?
Yeah. Did you make all that somewhere else and bring it in so that you could? Did you make?
Yes. So, good question. So the actual background is a solid element in Final Cut Pro. So in the top corner, you've got your library, photo, video, and then other things you can add. And one of them under generators is called solids. From here, you can get a custom solid, and you can drag that onto your timeline, and then you can change the color to whatever you want it to be over here. So I have that teal color, which you've probably noticed matches the walls. And in fact, the walls came first because when I went to paint my office, it was a white box, and I went to B&Q to look at paint, and I thought, oh, that's a nice color, I'll go for that. And I've never been more impulsive in my life because I'm usually taking something that takes ages to plan. So I was like, right, I'm going to take that color. Then I realized it looked quite nice, so I used the actual color name on Google and found out the exact hex code for it, and that's now the color I use for everything because I don't want to choose two favorite colors. So that's why I use that color. But yes, you can change that. The actual iPad frame, that's made. Where did that one come from? I think it might be Martin's shortcut again to get the device frame.
I was going to say, is it Martin?
I think it was. But you can also get them from the Apple developer site or the Apple ADE site of the resources section. Sometimes you get the background color, so I use Photoshop for that, but you could do Instant Alpha as well. And that's just saved as a PNG image. So that's see-through, and it's just a PNG image, which is quite nice. I have an iPhone one that I sometimes have that goes on the screen at the same time, and that works as well. And then the actual introduction title here, I think that was one that was built into Final Cut Pro. I just changed the font on it and made that work.
Cool, thanks.
The question. Eldar, you asked about why I use Compressor rather than exporting from Final Cut Pro. When you export from Final Cut Pro, I believe it just exports it in one particular format. I may be wrong on that, but the truth is, Antonio told me use Compressor for everything, and I just do what I'm told, so I'm using Compressor. I think that's the questions that are there. Okay, so what's happened now while I've been chatting is the video has exported to my movies library. Can I sort that by date added? Yep, there you go. So that is my quick tip. Lovely. And I'm going to add that onto YouTube. So we'll press select files, we'll go to movies, and we'll grab that video and upload it. Now, at this point, while it's uploading, I would usually jump into Photoshop to make my thumbnail. So I'll do that really, really quickly. While that's going, I'll minimize that for a second. Photoshop. My Mac is very slow today. I don't think it likes the fact the resolution has suddenly gone to this massive size for WebEx. There we go. Okay, so I've got a template here. Oh, hi me, that's funny. The template here with my thumbnails. This is my old style thumbnail, and you can see the difference between this style and this style. I think this one is much more eye-catching, and I think having my little face in the corner perhaps also makes it a bit more recognizable. So while I've been uploading to YouTube, I've been learning kind of what seems to work and what doesn't seem to work. And thumbnails are a really massive, massive part of what does work quite well. So I'm going to make a copy of this. Yeah, thumbnails are really, really helping in terms of people clicking on the video and watching. Who that is? They're trying to be sneaky and review. Okay, but so yeah, the thumbnail is really important, and what I've learned from various different blogs and websites is that you need your thumbnails to be consistent across all your videos. And I wasn't quite sure why at first, but then it makes a lot of sense. If someone sees one of your videos in the search results and clicks on it, they might watch it and they might enjoy it, and that would be great. But they might not subscribe to your channel. Now, on YouTube, you need people to subscribe in order for them to see your videos as you post them, because that then increases the views and that gets them out to a wider audience. So if your thumbnail is different for every video, people are going to click on it and watch it and enjoy it, but they may not recognize your video again the next time it comes up in their search results. If it's a different topic, they might not recognize it. But my hope is that if you see this thumbnail coming up 2 or 3 times, maybe 4 or 5 times, particularly with the little picture in the corner and the color theme on each one, you might start to recognize, oh, hang on, that's that Jacob dude from Cornwall. He's done a couple of videos that I liked. I'll press subscribe so I can watch the rest of them later. That's kind of my hope. So by making them similar, I think that's had quite a big impact on the actual number of subscribers that I've had. And when I changed style, the subscribers have almost doubled since then. So I think I'm onto a bit of a winner now with this particular layout. And again, I've got that teal colour because it's everywhere. Why not? Anyway, let me very quickly change this. So I've made a smart object placeholder in here. I can double click on there, and then I can replace the contents of my iPad screen. I'm going to go onto my screen recording that I took earlier, which is here. And I'm going to take a screenshot of a part of this video that kind of summarizes what it's about. So I liked it earlier when I had this on the screen, because that has the line path, it has the new setting, and it shows that there's something happening. So I'm going to do a screenshot, Command Shift and 4 on the Mac, and I'm going to drag a box over that particular area of my frame. Then I'm going to put that onto here. Make it, oh, don't want to rotate it, no, go away. Ah, it's gone, great, awesome. I think the problem is my little thumbnail of me talking is in the same corner as the screenshots go. That needs to change. Okay, we'll try it again. Command Shift 4. Okay, we'll put that on there, and then we're good to go. Now, again, this is me being overly fussy, and it's an unnecessary thing to change, but I personally don't like that you can see the recording button at the top of the thumbnail up there. I think it stands out too much because it's red and it distracts you from what's going on. So I'm just very, very quickly going to sample that colour, and I'm going to paint over it on a new layer just so you can't see that. Sometimes if the picture is particularly striking or if the top toolbar is distracting, I might go and remove those bits as well. But in this context, that's fine. So we're just going to flatten image, save that, and then if I go back to my template, that should update in the template. Nice. Okay, last thing is to give it a catchy title. So how to create maybe I might change that later. Natural line draw animations. No, how to use line draw animation tool. That's the one. How to use the line draw animation draw. Okay. Cool, that'll do. So I'm going to save that one, save it as a JPEG, and then we can put that on YouTube. So hopefully by now it's uploaded. It probably has by now. That's fine. Okay, so I'm going to just jump next through all of these screens at the moment because I like using the full editor rather than this little pop-up. And so it's private at the moment. It's not being shared to anyone. You could use the link and watch it, but at the moment it's private. But I can now see here that that video is ready to go. I'm going to press the pencil, and we're going to first of all put that new thumbnail on there. So choose that one, pop it on. Perfect, that's now there. We'll save it. And then the important things to do are the title, description, and tags, because what that will do is that will let people find your video in the search. So I mentioned earlier that I started out doing this purely for my colleagues at school and emailing it to them, but I soon realised that people actually quite like watching them and they do seem to benefit from them. But the challenge is getting people to see them in the first place. So the better your title, description, and tags are, the more chance people have got of finding your video in the search results. So I'm going to go on to a previous one, and I'm going to reuse some of the content from that one, because there's no need to do it fresh every single time. So this is a lot of the text here I can reuse. I say a lot of it, half of it. So I'll put that in there. And then I just need to think of something vague or interesting to write in here. So I think it's harder to type, but I know people are watching me virtually. That makes it a bit off-putting. Video to find out how the works when creating your own animations. Okay, so use the to create simple but impressive animations. That'll do for now. I might change that later. I don't know why I've capitalised some and not others. I don't quite know why I do that, but you know what, it's fine. Oh, I haven't mentioned iPad anywhere. Keynote for iPad. Mentions on your iPad. You need to use the word iPad a lot because there's so many videos about the iPad. If you don't mention iPad at all, that video will never show up to anyone that types in Keynote iPad. If you type in the word iPad 4 or 5 times, there is a fractional chance it might show up. Very, very slim. We'll save that before I lose it. Next thing I want to do is add it to a couple of playlists. So I've got one that's quick tips for teachers. They all go into there, and then Keynote top tips as well. That's done. Then I can add an end screen. So earlier I showed you the end of my video here has kind of video of me talking and a big space around it that's empty. So I'm going to use this one from my last video, which will then put 4 cards up at the end. So if we add that one, and then we'll just check that lines up properly.
Both animations will happen simultaneously, and my rocket will go blasting off into space. Hey, thanks for watching that video.
Okay, so because I know how long that end segment is, it's the same for all the videos. My placeholder template will work exactly the same. So on this screen, we can choose what videos or playlists are shown. I'm going to keep this one as a Keynote one, because if you watch one video on Keynote, you might want another. I'm going to share the playlist full of quick tips. This one will automatically choose a video it thinks the viewer will want to watch next, based on whatever magic YouTube uses. This one, that's an old video now, so I might change that. So let's pick my last week's video, which was the voice control selfie. And then we'll press save. Okay, so we're getting there now. We're getting there. If I press on the link to watch that video, it's got the title and the description, and it should hopefully look as the other ones do. The very, very last thing to do, I'll give it a little thumbs up while I'm there, because why not? The very last thing to do, and I'm going to have a lie down because I've talked for way too long today, is the tags at the bottom down here. Now, the tags, I still don't rightly understand what makes a good set of tags and what doesn't. Some people say you need to have really short individual words. Some people say have really specific and detailed phrases. I try and do a mixture of both. What I do know is that the earlier you put the tags in, the more importantly YouTube values them in the algorithm. So if you want to use Keynote and iPad as 2 of your tags, put them near at the end, because this video is not about Keynote in general or the iPad. This video is very much about a particular tool in Keynote. So I'm just going to try and change those tags a little bit now. I've realised that my little thumbnail of my video has been in the bottom corner of my Mac, and for some reason when I'm talking to whoever's watching, I'm watching me talking to myself, so I keep looking down here to talk to people. But I've just realised I can move that up to the camera. That means I can now talk, and you don't really care. Time to go. Okay, so we're going to change this to line draw in Keynote. You'll notice I'm using the word Keynote a lot here, because that is going to be a key thing that will hopefully help. Some more vague tags, animation Keynote. Some tags which talk about the latest update, which I think is 10.1. Keynote for iPad, for iPad OS, how to animate an object in Keynote. You need to kind of imagine that you're someone typing in a search query, and imagine this is what you want to find at the end. So for me, I would imagine someone wants to learn how to animate in Keynote. I imagine the person searching for this is not going to know that this is a new feature in the latest version of Keynote. I imagine the person watching this is basically going to think, how do I make something move on Keynote? So that's the kind of tags I'm going to start going for now, because that's what I think will help people the most. So how to make my image follow a line in Keynote, how to move something in animation in Keynote, Animations on my iPad. How can I animate on my iPad? How can I animate in Keynote? I think that will probably do for now. We'll save that video. Okay, so where we're at now is we've made the video in Final Cut Pro. We've created the original footage of the Memoji and screen recording. We have then put everything together in Final Cut Pro. We've edited it, we've trimmed it, we've cropped it. I've gone way too far into the detail of making things ever so slightly shorter so it fits in perfectly. And I've now created a QuickTips video. I go through this process every single Sunday because I'm a sucker for punishment, and I also do quite enjoy doing this. The very last thing to do, that video is done. It's been uploaded to YouTube. The last thing to do is to make it public. So I'm going to change to public straight away. I'm going to press save, and then I will share that link on Twitter. So I'm going to head over to Twitter, and we will write a new post. I tend to do some little emojis in there to make it stand out a bit from all of the other things that happen on Twitter. I tend to use this sort of format, so I'll put the link in there. I will put, not that video, is it that one? That title in there. To use the brand new tools in the latest Keynote for iPad. Animation tool. Seems to be a very loud earthquake happening outside. And then if we can fit in the Apple EDU chat, so what am I doing? Maybe let's go for general ed tech. We've got people who follow technology and education needs that hashtag. And upload the thumbnail. Save it, downloads, it's up there, choose, tweet. And at this stage, I would normally close my laptop and go and sit in the garden and break from my screen for a while, because that is a lot of effort for a 60-second video. I'm glad I could share that with everyone, because I think quite often it's very easy to watch a video and think, oh, that was a nice quick video, that probably didn't take a huge amount of time. But I like kind of putting the effort in, because I think it is a bit of a kind of craft. Like, I've learned so much. I've learned all of this in the last year. I didn't know anything about Final Cut Pro. I would never have dreamed about doing this previously. But I find it great fun now, and this is something that I really am passionate about and that I really do enjoy. If ever you see a QuickTips video popping up on Twitter or Facebook or anywhere, feel free to give it a share or a retweet for me, because all this effort, I'd like people to see it if they can. Sometimes the videos actually get shared in a keynote by Apple for Apple Super Educators, and that's amazing. That gets hundreds of views. Sometimes they just poop along and maybe get 40 views, and that's the end of it. But every now and then, you get a video which, for absolutely no reason, suddenly goes absolutely huge. So I had a video, I mean, by everyone's standards, it's not absolutely huge. By my standards, I was amazed. I made a video about taking screenshots with the Apple Pencil. One of the first ones that I made last September when iOS 13 came out. And that particular video has just gone up and up and up and up and up and up and up. I'm not sharing my screen anymore, so you can't see it, I've realised. But it's literally getting 200 or 300 views every day for absolutely no logical reason, because other videos perhaps get 4 or 5 views a day. So every now and then you'll get one that kind of really resonates with people, or videos to resonate with people and for people to see them. So yeah, if ever you do see a tweet, or perhaps the one I've just tweeted, maybe you can give that a little retweet. If you decide to make anything inspired by this or anything like that, let me know, because I would love to see it. I'd absolutely love to see what everyone else is making. And if you think people will benefit from watching this very long-winded session where someone just sits here and talks to themselves for the best part of an hour and a half, then when I upload it, feel free to share that if you want to as well. Unless anyone's got any questions, and by all means, if you have, feel free to shout at me now. Unless your questions, that's the end of the process, and I'm going to go and have probably another can of Coke. This one's lukewarm and a bit horrid. Not working with it if I don't sponsor them. Other drinks are available. But yeah, I don't think there's any questions in the chat. I'm glad people have enjoyed it. I didn't know if it would be worth doing or not, so I'm glad people have enjoyed it. Yeah, feel free to go now. I don't know if I should go first or if you should go first. I don't know how this works. What's the etiquette for a WebEx meeting? I don't know. But yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Am I doing ads on my video? That is a really good question, Suzanne. That is an excellent question. So at the moment, no. And that's because I can't. I'm not at the stage yet where YouTube will let me. So if you don't know how YouTube works, essentially you need to have two things in order to meet the criteria to start putting adverts on the video. You need to have 1,000 subscribers, which I hit yesterday, which I'm very excited about. And you also need to have 4,000 hours of watch time on your videos. Now, 4,000 hours doesn't sound like a lot unless you're an idiot that's making 60-second videos like this guy, because those videos are not going to rack up 4,000 hours particularly quickly, because they're so short. By their very nature, they're not designed to keep you watching for 20 minutes. So when I get 4,000 hours, I probably will put ads on for the older videos. I've been debating this for a long time, because I think, do people want more ads in their life? I don't think so. But when you go to YouTube and you watch a video, you get ads. That's what happens. You expect it, and you can skip the ads. But that money actually, it does help the creators that make things, and maybe in the future, if I ever got really, really into this, it might help me upgrade my computer to make it a bit quicker. It might go towards something useful like that. So I'm miles away from adding adverts, but I think when I can, I probably will. But again, it depends on whether or not I feel it's appropriate at the time. And I think things change so quickly. By the time I get to the point where I could add adverts, it may all change anyway. Does that kind of answer your question in a very long-winded way? Yeah, I think you don't get much money for the adverts. I think you probably get a couple of pence for every 100 people that watch it. But if you get a video that somehow suddenly goes viral and everyone starts sharing, that could be a substantial amount of money, in which case perhaps it is worth putting it on there. And like I say, if you're on YouTube, adverts are everywhere. Everyone's used to skipping the adverts. It's almost a surprise when you get a channel that doesn't have adverts. So yeah. Monica, I've ordered my Osmo. I'm incredibly excited. I think it should be coming early this week, and then I can use it for other cool things. I'm working on a project over the summer which is going to use it quite a lot. I'm going to make some videos about using EdTech in the classroom, so not necessarily just iPad, but other things. So I'm working on a microbit video at the moment, and the idea there is I'm imagining a teacher that hasn't used a microbit before, that hasn't used Sphero before, that hasn't used Lego Redo before, and I want to make a short-ish video kind of explaining what it is and why they might like to try it in the classroom. So just kind of sharing some knowledge in a slightly different format, and then for me, that gives me a chance to be creative by filming cool moving shots of the Osmo or whatever it might be. It gives me a chance to do some more interesting filming rather than just an emoji and a screen recording, because after a while that gets a little bit tiresome, and I like to learn new things, and there's so much more to learn in Final Cut that I can do by doing proper review videos and stuff. So yeah, I will keep you posted on the Osmo content. I borrowed my dad's one actually for a couple of days last week, just to kind of see if it was worth the money for me. And I don't know why my dad has an Osmo. He doesn't do any filming at all, but he does have one, so I borrowed it for a couple of days. And yeah, it's absolutely brilliant, Bronwyn. You can hold it however you want, can't you? And it is perfectly smooth. I can't wait to use it. My fiance is quite excited to film my cat using it, to do like a mini cat documentary. I'm not quite sure I'm as excited for that, but we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, yeah, I think probably we will wrap it up there. I'll put the recording up on YouTube when it's all processed and finished. And thank you all so much for actually coming and listening to me rambling on for the last hour and a bit. It's been lovely. And I'll speak to you all soon. Enjoy the rest of your Festival of Learning if you're taking part in it. See you later. Hey, thanks for watching that video. Now, if you enjoyed that and you want to find some more quick tips for your iPad or to use in your classroom, do me a favour and press the subscribe button down below. That will really help me out, and it will help you keep up to date with all the latest tips and tricks on my YouTube channel.